Last month, in a landmark case, a group of 16 young people from Montana became the first in the country to successfully sue the government for failing to protect them from climate change.
But what does their legal victory mean for future change? ABC's Devin Dwyer sat down with two of the teenage plaintiffs in an exclusive interview after the decision and joins us with their story. Take a look.
So yeah, it's 10-2.
For Lander and Badge Bussey, each cast into the river
Lander, can you angle your fly that way?
is an act of determination.
Do you consider yourself environmentalists?
Environmentalist is a very stigmatized word. We're just normal Montana kids. We're Montanans first.
The wilderness is their home and their culture, and increasingly threatened, they say, by the impacts of climate change, like drought, floods, and wildfires, all getting more intense.
Nothing's improving at all. It's getting worse. The smoke is getting worse.
Not old enough to vote, the Bussey brothers decided to sue the state of Montana for failing to protect them. They joined 14 other young Montanans, alleging the promotion of fossil fuels by the state contributes to climate impacts that harm them. Both boys took the stand to testify publicly during a 7-day trial, and last month, when State Judge Kathy Seeley handed down her decision, they won.
Is it sunk in that you guys made history?
It really feels like the ball's starting to roll now. There was a lot of skepticism about how much progress something like this would even have in a place like Montana where fossil fuels dominate.
Montana's constitution gives residents the right to a clean and healthful environment. It's one of just a handful of states with explicit protections in the state's Bill of Rights.
We're very lucky to have that, and it's just it hasn't been provided, and finally it's going to be.
The judge's 100-page decision says by ignoring the impact of greenhouse gas emissions and evaluating permits for new energy projects, state officials were violating the Constitution.
We will see a difference on the ground in terms of permitting decisions and in terms ultimately of the amount of CO2 that's being discharged into our atmosphere.
The victory in Montana is lifting the spirits of young people in other states with similar lawsuits against their governments over the climate crisis.
Seeing such a landmark case kind of produce such an awesome result was really inspiring.
You're suing the federal government over climate change. Why?
Pretty plain and simple. The federal government has knowingly known about this issue with climate change and has only exacerbated the problem.
Those claims have long been rejected by officials who say governments bear no legal liability for climate change impacts. The Montana Department of Justice called last month's ruling absurd, saying that Montanans can't be blamed for changing the climate. Montana environmental officials say there's a good reason greenhouse gas emissions have never been part of their assessments.
The state legislature and U.S. Congress have not said affirmatively, you shall go this way with climate analysis.
But will you now, because of this decision, have to look at those things?
There's permits that have standards that are well vetted through the course of time and through really integrated stakeholder involvement of all sorts. We will permit according to those standards.
We can't just shut down the coal mines. We can't just shut down the oil and gas production.
The state's energy industry says it's not going anywhere.
The fuel is still going to be pumped. The coal is still going to be mined.
The coal's still going to be mined. We're still going to produce oil and gas. It's going to give them a little more impetus to start filing more lawsuits.
Still, climate advocates say the symbolism of the case is significant, a major validation of scientific evidence that climate change is real and that state policies make it worse.
Not only is this a big deal for establishing our rights, but it's a big deal for establishing climate as a national problem. Got the smoke back there, too.
A problem the Bussey brothers say is now part of their life's mission to solve.
It's completely possible. I mean, it can fully happen. I mean, we proved it.
And Devin is with us now with more on this historic case. Devin, good to see you. The first question for you, you mentioned similar cases by teenagers in other states. Where do those lawsuits stand, and could they make a difference in the future?
Yeah, DeMarco, they sure could. You know, early next year, there's a similar case in Hawaii brought by young people that's going to go to trial. There are cases pending in Utah and Virginia. And a group of kids, one of them in the piece there out of Oregon, is suing the federal government for failing to address climate change. You know, advocates tell me because our legislators have been so gridlocked over the years on taking action, they think courts could now be the front line to kickstart that. And we'll just have to see if it has an effect.
So you mentioned this in your piece. Montana's Bill of Rights spells out specifically the right to a clean and healthful environment. But what do you think we will see in other states?
Well, Montana, Eva, is really unique. As we said in the piece, it's one of, I think, just 3 states that have it spelled out in those terms. And that was the key to the kids' legal victory in this case. In fact, it's the first time in U.S. history someone has successfully sued a government over climate change. So the decision and the fact that it was in the Constitution is really going to inspire efforts in other states now to amend their constitutions to be more like Montana's. It's really, the kids say, going to give this effort some momentum, guys.
ABC News senior Washington reporter Devin Dwyer, thank you so much for being with us.
Devin, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.